What's up, Gamecock basketball fans? I'm Elijah Campbell from 107.5 The Game here for another basketball breakdown. And this week, we are going to look at the women's basketball team because they have gone through a string of 5 straight wins against ranked teams in SEC play, and they are looking every bit as what a vintage Dawn Staley basketball team looks like, especially as we gear towards February and the home stretch of the regular season. And one of the games in that 5-game stretch that I want to hit on is the win over previously number 5 LSU. And of course, anytime South Carolina and LSU get to play against each other, it's the game of the year in the regular season. And they go on the road and win at number 18 Tennessee, a team that plays probably a more unique style than anybody in college basketball. So I want to take a look at these two games and highlight specifically these 3 players in terms of what they were able to bring to the table to help win these 2 games. Saniyah Fagan, Raven Johnson, and of course, SEC Freshman of the Week, again, Joyce Edwards. So we'll go ahead and take a look at a couple plays that I noticed from the LSU game, starting with Saniyah Fagan, that really helped change the course of this game, right? Saniyah does a lot of things outside of scoring that helped the team win. Now, she was one of the few players in double figure scoring in the LSU game. And so she was able to put the ball in the basket, but there's a lot of things that she does that I really like that don't involve scoring, right? And same thing with Raven Johnson, too. A lot of the clips that you're going to see here are from the LSU game that don't involve, necessarily scoring the basketball. But I want to take a look at the first play here from Saniyah Fagan. This is one of my favorite parts about her game is her ability to create shots for others, even as a post player. Like, post playmakers are so valuable in college basketball, and she kind of put on display her ability to play make for her teammates on this play right here. Very early on in the game, Saniyah Fagan takes the catch, goes one-on-one, drives baseline, and kicks out for 3. Now, if you watch, she beats her defender one-on-one. We'll watch this again here. She beats her defender one-on-one and immediately notices Michaela Williams, who's the help side defender, who was guarding Bree Hall. This is what makes her a really good passer, and something that I value in facilitators on offense is not just knowing what the person who is guarding you is doing, but noticing the help side defender and then being out of position. Because you notice when Saniyah beats her defender right here, Michaela Williams doesn't even take a step into the paint, but her chest is squarely facing the ball, meaning her back is turned completely to Bree Hall in that corner. So as soon as Saniyah sees this, that pass is there and it's wide open. And Bree, could have made a sandwich, could have dialed up the phone, could have ordered DoorDash, could have read a book with all the time that she had in that corner, right? Like, that's one of those things that she is that wide open because Saniyah did a really good job of reading the help defense, kicking that pass out on the baseline and creating an open 3. And that was a massive 3 to start the game. A first quarter that saw a ton of points, and a lot of that was because of the successful ball movement. And Saniyah does that incredibly well. And I've always been really impressed with her ability to not be a ball stopper on offense. A lot of posts in basketball can, be prone to being ball stoppers when the ball goes in the post because they want to go one-on-one. But she did a good job of beating her defender off of the dribble and then finding the shot over in the corner. Another play, now defensively, she had one of her best games, I believe, in that LSU game. And that was a vital part of beating LSU and turning what is Colonial Life Arena into a block party, right? And this is one of those blocks. This one's in transition. Early in the second quarter, we see that Saniyah blocks a shot here, but if you watch again, when we play this over, watch her take one subtle step towards the offensive player running towards the basket. She's facing the ball, but takes one subtle step with her left and then recovers to basically take away that pass, right? She's taking away that pass in transition because if that pass is made, Saniyah has to turn her body around completely and probably doesn't get there in time to block the shot. But she takes away that pass for a split second, forcing the ball handler to make the decision to go up with the layup, and Saniyah's athleticism, her length, helps her be able to recover, block the shot out of bounds, stare down a little bit, and save 2 points from going on the board. Sometimes it's the details in these things, like that subtle step allowed her to be able to recover in time and swat that shot out of bounds. Rejected. Like a lot of my college letters whenever I applied for school, getting out of high school. That's another story for another day. But another recovery. This is another one of the best examples that I've seen all season long with this team as it pertains to defense. This is defensively a very sound team. They're not just great on ball, but what I love about them is how good they are off ball, how good they are helping. I think Sanaya had a fantastic play right here to force a spin, but I also want to highlight Bree Hall's efforts and her ability to recognize the spin, come into the lane, help on the shot, and deflect it. So you see here, Anissa Morrow being guarded by Sanaya, spins into the middle of the floor. This is scouting too. This is something Anissa Morrow loves to do, is make that spin into the paint, spinning to her left. And you see as soon as she makes that spin, or before she even makes the spin, Bree Hall is already coming down to take away the spin and block the shot, or kind of co-block it. I think you can, if you split up blocks in the stat sheet, I think you should give each Sanaya and Bree 0.5 blocks, kind of like they do sacks in football. They just don't do that in basketball. But we watch this play again. Watch Bree Hall the entire time. At the beginning of the clip, she's over on the perimeter. And once Sanaya forces Anissa Morrow middle, which is what she does, Bree Hall is already there, and they get that block shot. South Carolina's coming the other way, and that helped end the third quarter, helped end the third quarter with South Carolina taking a 10-point lead into the final frame. Which, when you're playing defense like that, a 10-point lead feels like 20, especially in that building where simply nobody just walks into the house that Don Staley built and scores a lot of points. Teams just don't do that. But I want to get back to highlighting Raven Johnson as well. That's the second player I wanted to highlight, especially in this game. She is so much fun to watch, and I think she has a mastery of the pick and roll as the ball handler. She does a lot of things in this team that don't involve scoring that are vital to winning basketball games, right? She is a elite passer, especially when it comes to upping the tempo. She is an elite defender. We all saw what she did to Caitlin Clark at the end of the first half of that national championship game. And then she does a lot of things that just win. I love that Dawn talks all the time about her desire to win. Anytime you ask Dawn Staley about Raven Johnson, she just talks about Raven's a winner, right? Everywhere Raven's gone, she's won. And ever since she's come to South Carolina, she has won every single time. One of the winningest players, will go down as one of the winningest players in the history of women's college basketball, especially non-UConn players. But I want to start off highlighting her offensive prowess. And this is from the pick and roll. So we look at this clip right here. Chloe swings the ball over to Raven and immediately goes into a pick and roll action. Raven reads Anissa Morrow like a book right here and immediately drops that pass off. And it's not just that she makes the pass, it's the definitiveness in which she does it. Screen happens, immediately reads Anissa Morrow coming up to meet her at the level of the screen. And by doing so, gives Chloe an easy slip to the basket. And if you watch Raven too, she doesn't have to put two hands on the ball. I think that's one thing in coaching now that all coaches are trying to kind of emphasize on players is sometimes it's okay to make a one-hand pass. Raven is great at the one-handed pass. And it's one of my favorite plays that anybody in South Carolina does is her specific ability to off the bounce make a pass like that. Because if she puts both hands on the ball and has to wait, that ball ain't getting there. The help side defense is moving over, and then Chloe's getting met over at the block. But because she's able to make that pass with such precision and such quickness, it gives the ball to Chloe in the precise window that she has to be able to make the basket, right? Again, they say football is a game of inches. Basketball can sometimes be a game of milliseconds. And in that instance right there, all she might have to do is put one extra hand on the ball, and then, or even if she hesitated, right, and then made the pass, the bucket's not there. And then maybe Chloe catches the ball with a defender in her face and can't either go up and shoot or maybe draws a foul or has to reset the offense. A lot of other outcomes could have happened, but the one that involves scoring on a layup, open layup, occurs because of Raven's ability to dissect the defense in real time, to dissect the ball screen coverage, and to be able to make the right move. It's a combination of experience and natural basketball ability, right? Natural feel for the game. She immediately recognized that ball screen coverage and then makes the pass over the top. And it's that twitchy athleticism, too, that I think makes her a good fit at the next level. People can talk about jump shot or scoring or whatever. That's a point guard trait that is a professional basketball point guard trait. Another one, and this is one of my favorite plays of the game. I think this is the game-changing play, too, right? And listen to Kim Mulkey talk about this play And because she was asked about, after the game, asked about what the turning point was or what got LSU beat against South Carolina. And she mentioned turnovers at the wrong time. And she especially alludes to this play right here.
At the wrong time. Turnovers. Had critical turnovers. Maybe a couple of them were back-to-back, but I thought the momentum shifted there when we had those, Raven took it on an inbounds, and just little things like that we've got to mature and grow up and be prepared for.
And you know what, Kim? I agree. I think that was the turning point of this game. And honestly, it's the loudest I've ever heard Colonial Life Arena. It's not like I've been going there for 20 years, but I've been covering this team for 2 years now, and I've been in different environments in that arena. And so far, this is the loudest I've ever heard it. Men's or women's, the loudest I've heard that arena came off of this sequence with the steal by Sanaya Fagan, the layup by Raven, and then Raven immediately turning around and getting that steal and getting another layup, right? You couldn't hear yourself think in that building. So I want to break the play down further. So we go ahead and watch. South Carolina's up 5 right here. Sanaya basically jumps the entry pass and then does a really good job of not turning the ball over in the fast break, finding Raven, making the outlet pass, and then you watch Raven the entire time. Her eyes don't go back down the court. She's immediately thinking, what can I do to maybe disrupt LSU's inbounds pass? We go back and watch the steal again. A really solid pass here from Sanaya to get her in stride. But Raven immediately looks over and sees her opposing player put her hands up, obviously meaning the ball is coming right to her, and just jumps it. It is the type of defensive instinct that I think also separates Raven as maybe a next-level prospect. Even if you're not a great scorer, if you can do things like this defensively, guard the ball, be able to play defense off the ball, be able to anticipate actions before they happen. And not only is this an impressive show tape for her to be able to show the next level, this is one of the reasons that makes her so valuable, because just like that, Sanaya's defense and Raven's defense made this thing go from a 5-point game to a 9-point game and completely changed the momentum of that basketball game. And South Carolina clearly never looked back. But I look at that play and I immediately think that is the most South Carolina Gamecock basketball play you can imagine, right? And great defense that turns into easy offense, and then catching the other team sleeping because you're just a step ahead of them at all times. And that's one of my favorite staples of any Don Staley coach team, is just being a step ahead and being savvier than your opponents. And this is the perfect example, right? I mean, so many teams, when they give up a fast break layup, will oftentimes lackadaisically inbound the ball, right? They'll throw kind of lazier inbound passes. And I think, that's one of those things Raven just recognizes. And Raven's so good at, even when the ball is inbounded successfully, at forcing teams to be uncomfortable in that backcourt and that other side of the half court. In that instance right there, it wasn't completed. She jumped the pass, scored the layup, completely changed the outcome of that game. And now I want to get to Joyce Edwards. She is, once again, the SEC Freshman of the Week, and rightfully so. I think it's amazing that a true freshman can come in on this team, a team that is, returning all but one player from an undefeated national championship team, come off the bench and be the leading scorer. One of the broadcasters on another women's basketball game that I was watching, I believe it was Tennessee and Texas, mentioned, they were talking about South Carolina, and they said, is Joyce Edwards the quietest leading scorer of anybody in women's college basketball? I would agree with that. I would agree with it because she does it in such a fundamentally sound way. And the one thing I noticed in watching her against LSU and in Tennessee is that she already has the footwork of a pro. And when she gets the ball down low, the reason she's such a good scorer is because her footwork is simply just better than you. And she will get in position to score the basketball, whether you, the defender, like it or not. So I want to get into, we'll start with this play right here where Tessa gives her a pass on the low block. You see the bucket here, but you watch again. Watch her right foot, the red shoe. Takes one dribble. That drop step immediately pins her defender on her back hip. And that's a drop step that is perfectly executed. Takes one dribble, immediately feels behind her that her defender jumps to her left shoulder. And as soon as that happens, that's the perfect time to drop that foot and angle it to where all that number 5 has to do to be able to defend the shot is to foul her. The only way her defender is going to be able to adequately alter the shot is if she jumps over her back and fouls her. That drop step is an incredibly valuable move in basketball. because of the position and the leverage it gives you. And Joyce is so good at using that drop step to put her defenders on her back hip and make easy scoring lanes for herself. And this is one of my favorite plays from the Tennessee game, too. If you go back and watch the Tennessee game, this play right here, where Joyce has the ball, or the ball gets entry to her in the post, she tries to do the drop step. Tennessee, or her defender, makes a fantastic job of staying in front of her, right? Of not jumping to her left shoulder. Now, if you go back and watch the LSU play, the defender jumps over to that left shoulder to try to take away that spin, and by doing so, opened up the drop step. To quote Deuce Staley, a staple on these airwaves. The other team watches film too, and Tennessee watched film from the prior game and said if Joyce Edwards has the ball, don't let her get that drop step. But the most impressive thing here is, even when that drop step was taken away, Joyce absorbs contact, uses it to her advantage. Tennessee took away something she wanted to do, and Joyce still had the advantage because she finished through contact. When that defender takes away that clear look to the basket like she had against LSU, now you basically have created contact. Now, previously, in the last example, the defender would have to go over her back to try to block a shot, and that would ultimately result in a foul. In this one, the defender maybe could block the shot if she had maybe 2 or 3 more inches and longer arms. But at this point in time, too, Joyce is so quick with the trigger and being able to pull up and shoot that she's able to draw that contact and get an and one, right? Great players still make you pay for even the right decisions you make defensively. And this is the perfect example of that. Tennessee played this as well as you could play it. This is one of the best ways that Tennessee could scheme up a defense to try to slow Joyce Edwards down, is to maybe take away that drop step and make her shoot over you. But the thing about Joyce Edwards is, and the thing about a lot of great players, they're really good at shooting over you. And Joyce Edwards is really good at shooting over you, even if you are in perfect position. So I thought that was an interesting contrast from one game to the next. And now, it's not just the post-ups, too, because that's what I've highlighted these first 2 plays. But Joyce has a really good basketball mind, and you can tell by watching her, too. You can tell she puts in the hours, not just on the floor, but in studying the game as well. And this is one of my favorite plays from the game because she takes advantage of a switch. Now, we go back to Thompson Bowling Arena here, down 3. There's a screen that happens. She's being guarded by Jewel Spear, who is giving up a few inches on Joyce, and she wastes no time getting to the basket. You see Joyce catch the ball. She's going to get a ball screen, and that forces a smaller player to have to guard Joyce. And Joyce just goes to town, man. Goes to work, makes that spin, and of course, Jewel Spear's not going to be equipped to be able to guard that spin or to be able to pull off even what the previous defender in the last clip pulled off. It's because she is giving up so much size. And this is one of the reasons why the inverted pick and roll is one of the hardest actions to guard in basketball. I know LeBron James and JJ Redick, when they were talking on their podcast over the summer, were talking about the hardest actions to guard in the entire sport. And one of the reasons, and one of the things they brought up was the inverted pick and roll, where the forward is handling the ball and the guard is setting the screen. So you watch this play again, and you'll notice that Bree Hall is setting the screen. And this forces a switch. And once that switch happens is when you get your mismatch. And that's why the inverted pick and roll is so hard to guard. And if you have a forward who is a really good ball handler, then you are going to be able to put an opposing defense in a blender, right? Because you're creating mismatches all over the floor. Tennessee likes to switch. They switch a lot on defense. Dawn and company knew that coming into the game, part of the scout. And in a play like that, you do the pick and roll to force the switch, right? Or if you just get a really good screen and they don't switch, then maybe you get Joyce on a clear lane to the basket to either score or dump it off. But in this situation right here, Joyce immediately recognizes the switch, knows she has a mismatch, and wasted 0 time. She's a very mature basketball player. And, it's going to be a fun race to see if she wins the SEC Freshman of the Year. I don't know if there are many arguments against it. But I think at the end of the day, she is one of the most impactful freshmen because any freshman that can come in and be the leading scorer on this team is having a remarkable year. But she's light years ahead of so many freshmen playing in the sport right now. And just the future is really bright for her and the program to have her around for a few more years. One more play I want to highlight. Now, this doesn't necessarily involve, I guess, maybe Sanaya, Raven, or Joyce, the 3 players that I've decided to feature in this week's video. But I think their ability to beat Tennessee's trap as a team was one of the reasons they were able to get a large enough cushion to withstand a Tennessee comeback towards the end. Now, they had a large lead going into the fourth quarter. Tennessee cut it down and only ended up losing by 7 points. So South Carolina wins by 7, and it looks maybe on paper like it wasn't as dominant, but they were dominant through 3 quarters, right? But one of the reasons why they were dominant and be able to build that cushion to where a fourth quarter barrage wouldn't beat them was because they handled the trap so well and handled the full court press. Tennessee presses every single possession. That's a Kim Caldwell staple. That's why she plays like 10 players in platoon swaps or a hockey line change for every substitution, is because they all play so fast all the time. They love to shoot threes. They love to try to force turnovers in the backcourt and go the other way with it. That's why her teams are always so high scoring. So that was going to be a challenge coming into this game. What made Tennessee a unique challenge was that defensive style of play. So when to highlight this right here, I think Maddie McDaniel did a fantastic job of being able to attack, right? She is being guarded one-on-one all the way up to half court, sees the defense converge on her, and the ball immediately gets to the middle, right? And when beating a press, you want to get the ball to the middle to where you're not trappable. Maddie McDaniel draws 3 defenders right here. And once she does, then you basically have what we call in hockey a power play. Defense converges on Maddie. Ball goes to Joyce. Joyce takes a couple of dribbles. 1 pass, 2 pass, bucket. And it's not just getting the ball into the middle, but it's being decisive with what you're going to do. Pressing defenses prey on teams that are very indecisive. And if you're indecisive facing a full court press, that's how you create turnovers. That's how you turn the ball over 20 plus times in a game, is because you are indecisive with what you do. And that indecision gives the defense time to be able to rotate and be able to stay in front of ball and man. But with crisp ball movement and decisive passes, you get an easy bucket. And South Carolina got a lot of easy buckets. But I think this was one of my favorite plays that I watched during that game, because I was like, this is how you handle a full court press. Great ball movement, great decision making. Being decisive with your actions and with the ball is a way to break it. Fantastic week again for the Lady Gamecocks, and they'll be taking on Auburn on Sunday. A reprieve from the stretch of 5 games against ranked teams that they faced this year, or this past week and a half, 2 weeks. But still, this is one of those things, man. I watched this basketball team, and they still have it. Like, obviously, it's the same team from last year minus Camila Cardoso, and you replace her with Joyce Edwards, and Joyce becomes the leading scorer of this team. And this team's starting to look a whole lot like the team that breezed through last year and won a national championship. It's no breaking news that this team is dominant, that this team is elite, but there are a lot of little fine detail things that I love when I watch this team, whether it be Bree Hall playing great help defense, whether it being Sanaya not just being able to score with her footwork down low, but being a good facilitator and a passer, or whether it's Raven's on-ball defense or her savviness to be able to get a steal on a lazy inbounds pass and basically change the course of the momentum of a massive, massive regular season game against one of your biggest competitions in the SEC. This team has so much of the little stuff. And I truly believe Dawn Staley when she says her team wants to be a chameleon, being able to play in any type of style, right? The game that they played against LSU, stylistically and schematically, significantly different than what the Tennessee game was. And that's what being a chameleon is about, is to be able to go into any environment, any gym, any play style, and to be able to adapt. And this is one of the most adaptable teams, if not the most adaptable team in the sport. I'm Elijah Campbell. This is this week's basketball breakdown. Talk to you again next week. As always, listen to me, myself, and Jay Phillips on the postgame show, 3 to 6, every Monday through Friday. See you then.